Welcome to another episode of Stuck in My Mind podcast. I am your host, W-I-Z-E. My next guest has an amazing story to share. I'm excited for him to talk about it. Welcome to the show, J.K Emezi.
Hey,
Hey,
thanks for having me.
this is on my. It's interesting. It's an interesting topic because it's something that's I've been seeing a lot of across the internet and it's different from my generation. I'm 47 years old. It wasn't as accessible as it is now. Like it's crazy how kids have access to this. Like for us, I would be lucky if one of our older siblings had a tape or something laying around. Not now where you have sites like Pornhub and everything, but we just gotta talk about it. Can you share with us your personal journey of overcoming porn addiction and how it led to you creating the Porn Reboot System?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we're not that far apart in age. I just turned 40. So I grew up with the VHS, the Sears catalog, passing the Playboy along in class, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I was first exposed to pornography when I was about 8 years old. So back in the day, I was what you call a latchkey kid. So parents left the key under the flower pot, and I had to make sure I didn't let anyone in. But we had a cousin, older cousin. She would come by and just make sure we were okay. I was about 8. My sisters were younger. And one day she came by with a comic, and this was during my comic book obsession. Actually, I still am obsessed with comics. I just got to focus on work these days. And I was trying to get this comic because I'd read every comic in the house, and she just wouldn't let me. So one day I found out that I noticed she would leave without it. So I was like, she's hiding it somewhere in this house. And I found it. Unfortunately, it was pornographic in nature. Now, when I opened that comic book, the theme, and I won't say anything triggering, but the theme was this guy goes off, gets married, comes back home, and introduces his new bride to his father. Then he goes off to run errands, and the father starts having sex with the bride in the wedding dress. And everything is exaggerated in this comic book. This is my first exposure to anything sexual. And, years later, I look back at this, and you were talking about younger people, this generation, and I realized something. At 8 years old, even though I didn't know what sex was, I immediately decoded what that was. And that's the problem with pornography, is that it doesn't matter your mental state or mental development, your age, whether you're literate or illiterate. If you're a human being, you will decode what that is, even though you don't know what it is. And the dangerous part about that is you're going to interpret it into something that makes sense to you. Or you're going to try to engage in it because you saw other people doing it when you were young. Now, for me, fortunately, at 8, I wasn't able to get physically aroused, but I did feel a rush, like something was trying to happen. And what I did is I did know that it was bad. I knew that too. I was like, I should not be seeing this because she was hiding it. Is this what dad is doing to mom? That's scary. And I mean, this guy had like a giant penis. It was crazy. I really thought that that's what guys were walking around with. I was scared now because it looked in the comic book, it looked like it hurt. So I didn't understand. But what happened after that was every time that as a kid, I got rejected, I had to go straight to bed, I didn't get candy, anything, I would go and look for nudity because I just wanted to have that feeling of excitement, that taboo thing. I just didn't know. I just kept doing it subconsciously till I hit puberty, about 13, 14 years old, learned how to masturbate. And then to my young mind, it all made sense. I was like, well, this is it. This is what it's about. And because I'd already started using it as a coping strategy, I used it that way throughout my teens. Get rejected by a girl, use it. Everybody in school, the boys are growing faster than you, getting jacked. Not you look like an 11-year-old when you're 13. Go watch porn and feel better about it. And that continued until fast forward a couple of years, I'm in college. I haven't lost my virginity. I haven't had any sexual experiences because every single day I'm masturbating several times a day. And when I'm about 17, 18 years old, then I get exposed to internet on the computer, pornography on the computer, and a few years later, high-speed internet pornography shows up. And that was the point at which I couldn't turn back anymore. I was stuck in it.
Yeah, that's crazy. And like I said, for me, it was different because
Yeah.
we didn't have access to it like that. It was if my older cousin or my brother or somebody that had a cassette or something, and we kind of just found it or whatever.
Hmm.
So it wasn't readily accessible as it is now. And I think that's why it's so much dangerous now because it, it's 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 just a couple clicks away.
Oh, now it's everywhere. Now
Yeah,
it's on literally I was on Instagram earlier on today and something popped up on the timeline. I thought it was something else. I clicked on it. It wasn't pornography, but it was pornographic in nature, the entire context. And I was
yeah.
like, Instagram doesn't have like an age check or anything like that. Anyone can get on there and start an account. There are kids on there. And there's straight up pornography here. So you got to think about even for somebody like me who grew up in the 80s and the 90s, who had very conservative parents, I got addicted. Now we have parents who don't whoop their kids, parents who are a lot more liberal. And then imagine what this generation is going to grow up and have to deal with. Because it took me a good 11 years of my life to overcome this behavior.
So what sets the porn reboot system apart from traditional addiction recovery methods like therapy or 12-step programs?
That's a great question. First of all, I tried those methodologies, and there's nothing wrong with them. I think they work for a lot of guys. The only problem is that I'll talk about the scientific part of this, the biological part, and then the mental part of this. Actually, I'll talk about the mental part of this first. When you talk about recovery, if I bring up the word recovery and addiction, for a lot of people, it brings up a lot of ideas. So, for instance, we think addict is something bad, somebody who's made poor choices, somebody who's out on the streets. And recovery also comes with a lot of language. So, some of the language is, one day at a time, once an addict, always an addict.
There's a lot of negative stigmatisms, yeah,
Yep,
with,
yeah.
with
My name is
being that.
J.K. and I'm a porn addict, which
Yeah.
meant that I would have to. The idea was that you are going to live with this behavior for the rest of your life. And this was holding me back. It was holding me back from sexual intimacy. It was holding back my spiritual growth. It was holding me back from even being my best self because I was so isolated because of the shame of the type of pornography I was viewing. So when I would go into a meeting and someone would say, like, yeah, you're going to have to follow the steps for the rest of your life, I was like, wow, this is not a disease. And that's the problem. Traditional recovery and a lot of therapy still follows the disease model, which makes you feel that you're dealing with this. And recovery, when we think about it, is recovering that which you lost to whatever your out of control behavior was. But think about this. Let's say you were addicted at the age of 25. And then at 35, you come to your senses and you decide, listen, I'm 35, I'm pushing 40. It's time for me to get my life together. So I'm going to go into recovery. What exactly are you recovering? What do you're 35. It's different from 25. You can't get those things back. That's completely gone. And then you have to look to a sponsor or a therapist to now tell you the way a 35-year-old man or woman should behave. So I came up with the term rebooting because I couldn't go back and recover anything. I had to let go of my past. I had to forgive myself in the past and accept, hey, JK, you did some messed up things. You watched some messed up things. You didn't get the chance to date. You didn't get the chance to do any of those things in high school or early in college that other people did. That's okay. Like, forgive yourself for it, but don't pine over those things. It's okay to hit the reset button and start from where you're at right now. Because think about it. if your computer has too many tabs open, too many programs running, it slows down. You're not trying to like recover stuff from, you're like, oh, I'm just going to recover it. I'm going to keep recovering from 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago. The easiest thing for you to do is hit the reset button, close everything down, like restart your software, download new software. It's still the same computer. The memory is still there, but now it is no longer slow. So I think it's an absolutely healthy thing to hit the reset button from where we're at. But most importantly, it's called porn reboot because a man needs to reset his values. Pornography messes up your values. There's nothing intimate about it. The way you view women is different. The way you value love and connection is gone. Like it's all gone. So start from the bottom. If you're a 35-year-old and you've been addicted since you were a teenager, you've got to reset your values because many men will look back at their relationships that didn't work out, especially when they're going through porn reboot, and they start realizing, now I see why all my relationships went the way they did. That's because of the way I was viewing women. That's the way that I viewed love. So that's the main reason why we call it, that's the social reason why we call it porn reboot. The biological reason is very simple. When you're addicted to pornography, the substance, right? The drug, it's in your head. Pornography is not the problem. Pornography is just the symptom of the problem. People view pornography because they're using it to feel better about a strong emotion, because they're bored, because they're experiencing stress, because they're lonely or they're lacking intimacy. So with substance abuse, the substance is external from you, like whether it's meth, it's heroin, it's alcohol. That's one thing. So there's a system for dealing with it. But for us, the opiate, our brain produces opiates. When a person orgasms, he releases endorphins. The endorphins make you feel good. You become addicted to those endorphins. And our body is so amazing because our body designed us so we could never get addicted to things like orgasm. But pornography is not normal. At least high-speed internet pornography, right? We've been drawing penises on cave walls since the beginning of time, right? But high-speed internet pornography, the way it is today, our human brains, they're not designed to handle that. But it's now given us a way to get addicted to this internal opiate. So the methodology for dealing with something that's internal is very different. You can't say with alcohol, you can keep the alcohol away, right? With an external substance, you can. But how do you do it when the substance, the drug is in a man's head? You need a separate system for that.
So how do you help men identify signs of porn addiction and overcome the shame associated with it?
I think overcoming the shame is the bigger challenge, right? The signs of porn addiction. Actually, the I use the term porn addiction on the outside because that's the way people understand it, right?
Yes.
The truth is that I'm not even a big believer in addiction, right? It's more of a compulsive behavior. Because when we say addiction, it makes it feel like, oh, I'll never beat this. A compulsive behavior is when it's a behavior you engage in when you no longer get any benefit from it, and when you try to stop, despite your best intentions, you're not able to. And even when you don't want to do it, you still do it. So you might be, some guys are just like, they masturbate all the time or they view pornography to the point that they'll tell me things like, JK, man, I can't even go to bed at night unless I get on my phone, watch some porn and jerk off. Right. And they're just unable to do anything about it at that point. So that's an example of a symptom, somebody who's unable to stop it and they're like, I don't get any benefit from it, I don't want to, but I just do it as a habit. I'm not even aroused, right? My thing is just there like a gummy worm, and I still have to go through the process of orgasm to go to bed. So that's a compulsive behavior. If every time that you view pornography or you masturbate, it generates a lot of shame for you, a lot of shame, that could be a sign that it's a compulsive behavior for you. And also, I think for most men who are listening to this, most men already know. Most men who are dealing with this at some point have told themselves or asked themselves, man, is this normal? Is it normal to do this all the time? Is it normal to sexualize and undress every single woman I see in public? If you're asking yourself that question and you're spending multiple days a week viewing pornography, it might be a compulsive behavior. Now, the shame that comes up, the first of all, I want to differentiate between shame and guilt. Guilt is when you feel bad for doing something, a specific action. And it's easy to take care of that. You can apologize for that thing, right? Make sure you don't do it again. Again, shame, on the other hand, is when you feel that you are a bad person. When you feel that something within you is broken and you are inherently wrong, that's that's the problem. And the problem with shame is it causes us to isolate. It thrives in isolation. So anytime you're done engaging in that behavior, you feel different when you walk out. You feel that you're going to be exposed. If you're in a relationship, you can't even be your authentic self in a relationship because you have this statement in your head. If she knew who I really was, she wouldn't love me. And that is the thing that's in the head of every man who's struggling with this addictive behavior. So the first step to overcoming shame is to talk about it. You got to bring it out in the light. It doesn't survive there. And that's the first thing we do in Porn Reboot. Like, I am always excited whenever a man reaches out, because usually we're the first person, he might see something of ours online. We're the first person he's ever spoken to about this behavior. And the moment he just has that conversation, and he's like, man, that was really cool. That was cool to be able to talk about it. I thought it would be weird, but you guys just make it so easy. You talk about it like this is a conversation you have every day. And I went away from this feeling better and ready to deal with it without shame.
Okay. Can you elaborate on the coping strategies you teach to help individuals end their porn addiction permanently?
Yeah, for sure. So there are a lot of coping strategies. We use coping strategies at different stages of your out of control behavior. The first one would be to identify whatever your main urges are. Like I mentioned earlier, some people are actually using pornography to medicate stress. They're using it to medicate loneliness or strong emotion. So you've got to identify what your trigger is. And then what we
Okay.
do is we put together a customized plan and we put together a custom coping strategy for you. So an example could be, let's say, during the pandemic, we got a lot of clients, we got a lot of guys who started working from home, and they realized little things like when their partner would leave for work, if they work from home, the moment that they were alone, that was a trigger. So, like hearing the door close, hearing the car leave the garage, that triggered something within them because at that point they were like, okay, I'm alone. I'm going to engage in this behavior. So they began whatever rituals that they engaged in, clearing their browser, locking the door, getting the low, all those things. They got into that. So in those cases, we could do something like we have a masturbation checklist. And it's a very simple checklist that we train you to go through to raise your awareness. So there are just a few things you need to mark on it, such as, is there a sexual relationship I have access to that I'm avoiding right now? Am I going to regret this behavior later? Um, do I have some other alternative for engaging in this? So all it does is that it raises your awareness so that you know what you're going to do. Because most guys, the moment they decide they're going to view pornography, they have nothing holding them back. They just go straight into the behavior. So, what we do at first is we don't stop you from viewing pornography or masturbating. We get you to become aware of why you are doing it, right? It could be that you wanted to have sex with your wife and she just said, I'm tired. Now, you didn't have any problem with that. What happened was you felt rejected, and then the rejection made you feel like, you know what, I didn't need to be with you. I see fine girls at the gym, I could get any girl I want. I don't know why you're rejecting me. It's really not about that. There's a deeper emotion that you haven't addressed, because if you're a man living in abundance and this was, she's down to have sex, it just happened to be today, you would have sexual control. You'd be like, all
Yes.
right, cool, it's not happening, it's all good, like, I'll move on. But you're like, nah, I'm gonna go watch porn. I'm gonna look for that girl who's my type, and I'm gonna jerk off to it. Especially if you have a compulsive behavior. So the issue there is not the pornography. The issue is the issue of rejection. So those are a couple of ways that we help men to kind of identify the triggers first. You got to do that first before you are assigned a coping strategy.
Okay. All right. What role does self-education and mentorship play in the recovery process from porn addiction?
Self education is helpful, but it's not action. Anybody can read books, watch videos on YouTube, and
Yeah.
listen to podcasts. And I think self education raises awareness. Mentorship is good. Mentorship is basically like in our program, we offer coaching, consulting, and mentorship.
Yeah.
Coaching is where I show you that you are capable of doing this. Consulting is where I tell you what to do, and mentorship is where
Okay.
I tell you what I would have done if I was in your shoes. Right? So mentorship in using that definition is helpful if you can find somebody who has actually had a similar experience to you when it comes to overcoming this behavior. I think that coaching is probably one of the best routes because coaching shows you that you have the internal capacity to do this on your own. And one of our beliefs here at Porn Reboot is that the client, you, are the best expert at yourself. I'm not the guru. I'm just a guy who's weirdly, I didn't grow up thinking, hey, I'm going to grow up and become a porn addiction recovery coach. I don't even know how I ended up here. I just became a nerd for helping guys get out of addictive sexual behaviors. I don't know why. That's my calling. That's my blessing. But at no point do I pretend to be an expert at you. I'll give you
Yeah.
the tools, I'll guide you, but you, the man listening, you're the one who's going to be alone at night. You're the one who's going to be dealing with the temptation. You're the one who has to make that final decision.
Okay. Um, could you describe the typical challenges that men face when trying to recover from porn addiction, and how do you address them?
Yeah. Some of the problems that men face are the first one is self doubt. It's not believing that if anyone can help you because you're like, this is my dick. This is my sexual behavior. I'm a man. If I can't control this on my own, how is another man going to help me do this? I don't understand that. The second mistake after self doubt is thinking that you can use willpower to end this behavior. If you could use willpower, you would have ended it already, right? The problem
Okay.
with willpower is that willpower is finite, it ends at a certain point. So you're not able to do that. You need things like accountability and you need to be able to forgive yourself, right? I call this process working with your brain instead of against your brain. So what that means is that a lot of men will use willpower to push against their natural sexual urge, which
Okay.
they've abused. You can't win against your natural sexual urge. Now, can you use willpower to stay away from drugs and alcohol? Yeah, you can, because those things are not really natural to you. But with pornography, you're fighting something that is within you. And if we were to treat it as a separate personality, the question would be, how do you beat an enemy that is as cunning and as intelligent as you? How do you beat an enemy that actually is you? You're not going to win if you go head to head. The only way is to make it aware of itself. And then you come to the realization that, oh, I'm not addicted to porn or sex. Actually, there was a certain point in my life that I was experiencing strong emotions and I didn't have the skills to do anything about it. So this part of me actually protected me. It was like, hey man, you can't handle this. Let's just jerk off. Let's have an orgasm and you'll feel better about yourself. You didn't have coping strategies. Your mom and dad didn't sit down and say, here's a coping strategy to deal with this when you get rejected. No, you have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, many of us found negative behaviors to do it on our own. And so when you start thinking that you can do this on your own, that's not going to happen. You need coping strategies. You also need other people. That's a mistake, thinking you can do it alone with willpower. You need other people because you need proof that this can be done. For this particular behavior, there's not enough proof. There are not enough people on the internet talking about how I overcame it. In fact, till today, you'll still hear when I say things like early in the day, nobody would years ago. I've been doing this for 12 years. Years ago, no podcast would have me on. It's interesting. You started this saying that, now you see it on the internet, people talking about it. Back then, people would send me emails back going, but LOL, like, fuck out of here, dude. You got to be kidding. Porn addiction? That's not a thing. Like,
'Let's be honest. Nobody thought it was an addiction. Nobody thought it was that serious. But then
yeah.
you have situations where it's ruined marriages, it's ruined relationships, it's ruined families because people have been addicted to just watching porn. And it's again, it's yes, we had porn when we was growing up,
Mm,
yes, but it wasn't accessible as it is now. Like
mm.
when I went to the video store, there was a section of the video store you couldn't enter.
Yep. I remember that. I
You would
remember
sneak
that.
in once in a while, but for the most part, you couldn't enter that section. And so, but now it's like you said, um, you have OnlyFans, you have all these different sites, all these where that's what they sell is the sex. That's what they're offering. Like, oh, come be a fan, join, and it's so much easier for people to really go ruin their lives because now they're just so addicted to watching porn and I guess that's probably their form of escaping reality.
It is their form of escaping reality. I think the worst part is for many people it becomes their reality. There's some dudes right now who really think that, you know, that's the way. Like now you'll see guys in the comments, they see a girl, nobody's thinking of, let me shoot my shot with this girl, let me have a conversation with her, let me put my best foot forward. The first thing is, what's her OnlyFans? What's her at so I can find her OnlyFans? And the culture is actually shifting this way because many guys now, because they spend a lot of their lives online, their reality is what they see online, they actually think that that's the way to go. And of course, what do young women on the other hand think? They're like, well, if guys are showing up and asking me what's my OnlyFans, if guys are all sexualizing me, then
That's what
I
I'm
guess
getting
I
at.
should do it. Like that's the game. And so now you have women walking around there who most young women today have a price. And it's
Mhm.
unfortunate, but that is a direct result of high speed internet pornography. And there's just not enough people who are talking about how this cultural change has come about.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, man.
It's
It's crazy. It's right under our nose. We see it and we're like, that's just the way it is. Till it becomes a real serious problem, which it kind of already is when you hear about a lot of the stuff that's happening with child sexual abuse, a lot of these scandals. These are not random
yeah.
things. They are not random. They are happening because our society is getting so sexualized and
Hmm.
now it's okay. Now it's
Yeah.
just normal to get on social media and see skin. Nobody complains. Nobody now people who complain about these things and like, oh, you're showing too much skin are now the minority.
And it's crazy because you have platforms like this, right, where we're here to help inspire and and, and help people and everything. But yet you get someone who people rather go see someone else's YouTube channel where they're showing their ass or they're showing their tits or they're shaking and twerking them, and that's what people are more geared to go view is those that type of content. So you have content like this where it's more conscious related and more on wanting to help people battling these these content where all these people care about is just the clicks and views and they don't care how they do it. So if they're gonna show an ass here or tit there, it doesn't matter to them.
They're going to do that. And I think it's great that you're running something that's for self-improvement and for people improving themselves, because my theory on this is that as time goes on, there's going to be a big separation between people who are focused on self improvements and bettering themselves and people who are just consumers. like a lot of my clients get on, and one of the things, those who start their behavior on Instagram, like they're like, man, I tried staying away from pornography, but I slipped and I relapsed because I went on Instagram and that just led me back to porn. So I'm like, just take some time off Instagram. And they're like, oh no, I can't do that. You're on Instagram. I was like, let me make something clear to you. Social media is a tool for me. And for
Mhm.
most men who are looking to grow themselves, social media should only be used for two things: not to keep in contact with your friends. It's there's a select group of people that inspire you and are aspirational. Like, I want to be like you. You inspire me, and I aspire to be like you. And then you yourself need to be creating something. You need to be putting your art out into the world. So I'm like, I just use the heck out of it. I don't respect it. I just use it like a tool to get my message out.
And that's
That's
what it's
it.
supposed to be.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's supposed to be a tool for help you to spread your word, get your message out, and you don't necessarily have to spend all day scrolling through Instagram. If you
Yeah.
got something you need to post that needs to get out to your clients or whoever, you post it and share it. Other than that, there's no need to be on there 24/7.
Dude, you are right, man. I tell people, they're like, well, what of the social part? I was like, I'm social with guys who hit me up in the DM and they're like, man, I have a question for you about this, blah, blah, blah. That's the kind of social I'll be. But if
Hmm.
somebody shows up there to have some random conversation, I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
no,
block you, right?
yeah,
We got to talk about the things that if somebody comes and talks about self-improvement, refers me to someone, like, yeah, I love to be social about the things that are gonna help me grow, but
of
I have
course.
no business being on there for anything else. You're right.
So, This is just how does addiction to pornography impact other areas of people's lives, such as relationships, work? They just don't have them, do they?
No, it bleeds into other areas, but the only problem with porn is that guys take too long to admit that they have a problem, and then usually it's too late. I think the first place we can see it easily is in people's relationships, right? Is you're with a partner and your partner has no idea you view pornography. Or sometimes she does, and she makes the mistake of just thinking, well, that's what that's what every guy does, right? Guys just do that until your guy steps out because he's been watching so much pornography and he starts comparing you to the women online, and you are never ever going to match with the women online. There's no way. They're airbrushed, they don't have cellulite, they are perfect. You can't do any of those things. A lot of men will then get caught when eventually at some point they're going to get caught. That's the thing with most men just think they can hide it for years, but you're going to get found out. And usually the partner feels betrayed. Why? Because most men who are addicted to pornography are not able to satisfy their partner. There's something called PIED, or porn induced erectile dysfunction. A lot of guys right now can't get it up. And it's not because of their health or their diet. Most of the time it's because they've watched pornography till the point that they are desensitized to women in the real world. Unless they watch porn while they're having sex or watch porn before sex, they can't get it up. And I'll just throw out a random number. I believe about 80% of guys are struggling with this. Back in the day,
Wow.
ED only happened to men who were in their 60s and above. And
Yeah,
that was even rare. I would say that guys in their
yeah,
70s and 80s.
yeah. And now you're hearing guys in their 20s, 30s, 40s having issues with getting it up. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
was in the
it's it's
gym and I saw an ad for. I took a note because I saw one of these commercials for Blue Chew.
yeah.
Um, and it had like all the girls, the influencer girls. I was like, dang, they're paying this TikTok influencers were on TV on the TikTok thing, and that was that TV ad with the Blue Chew for guys. And I was
Hmm.
like, man, maybe I need to promote Porn Reboot like that. But it had like the Blue Chew, and this is for young guys. It's become so normalized. The other impact it has is on guys' motivation, right? Because one of the things that is released when you are addicted to pornography is dopamine. But we are not designed to release dopamine at the rate we do when we are viewing pornography. See, what dopamine does is people think that dopamine makes us feel good, but dopamine is just a reward for effort that we've put in. So, like I said, when people orgasm, when you orgasm, it's not dopamine you're releasing, actually. It's just endorphins. Like you've heard of the runner's high. When you run so much and your body is under stress, your body will release those opiates, the endorphins, so that you feel good and you feel amazing and you feel high. The same thing happens with orgasm. But whenever that happens, your body releases a little bit of dopamine to reward you because it says this is good for your survival. So I'm going to
Mhm.
release it. But if you're
Yeah,
edging, you have 20 tabs open, you're watching pornography for hours, you're doing it 2 times a day or multiple times a week, now you're going to get depleted of dopamine. But the problem is you need dopamine to reward you for hard work. Whether it's somebody who's podcasting, just that drive to like, I want to get more guests, I want to get better guests, I want to market my stuff better, I want to build my personal brand. You need dopamine because dopamine is the thing that makes you go like, that's good, you won. When you're doing hard work and you're like, is this worth it? You're going
yeah,
to release dopamine when you visualize. You're like, oh man, I'm excited to grow this. When you don't have dopamine, you feel nothing. So you're not motivated. And that's why we have a program for executives and entrepreneurs, because right now there are a lot of men out there who are really trying to be successful. They want financial freedom. They're like, well, it's the internet. I should be able to do my own thing. That's wonderful. There are a lot of guys who want to do that. There are very few guys who have the drive. And if you are addicted to pornography, you cannot compete in the online world. You can put stuff out there, but you can't compete with people who have more discipline with their dopamine. So it affects your financial life. And then finally, it does affect your emotions and intimacy, right? There's just something soul sucking about watching a whole bunch of pornography and then going about your day. Like you feel empty. Like very few guys watch pornography because today there's nothing that is, even by the time I stopped watching pornography, there was nothing like normal porn. When I started watching, there was like a theme, there was a
they had
plot,
stories, they had
music.
everything.
Yeah, you
Act,
could actually
they
enjoy
actually
it.
had a story, but I remember watching, and they actually had, oh, maybe she was, her pipes were busted or something, and the
Yeah,
plumber came over. They always had a story. Now
yeah.
it's just they jump right into it. It's just right
And,
in,
and they
and
jump
so
into the worst part. There's no
yeah,
like missionary, there's no normal stuff.
no, no,
It's all like
it's some
violent and
crazy shit.
rough. And I'm just like, wait. So guys come out of this not feeling good about themselves because it wasn't even an experience that can be replicated. There wasn't a story, there wasn't anything there. And I want to make one thing clear. I'm not against pornography. I think, like I said, we've been drawing paintings on walls. There's this history shows that pornography has always been around. It is high speed internet pornography that has completely changed because our brain cannot handle it. That's what I'm against. And so you don't feel good as a person. You watch messed up stuff. Sometimes you watch stuff that you're just like, man, that I wouldn't even do that to in
Yeah.
real life. Like I would that's just not me. That's messed up. And when you do this on a regular basis, it messes with your self-image. The most valuable thing a man, especially a man who's achievement minded, like the brothers who are listening to this podcast, the most precious thing you can have is your image of yourself as a winner, is your image of yourself as a contributor. Like you're like, I have something to say or give to the world and I will win at it and I am worth it. Every time you watch that pornography that makes you feel down, it's the same self-image. You're cracking that. You're breaking that. You're taking away from your healthy self image.
And in addition to your porn reboot program, you also offer programs like Optimum U and the Dating Reboot program. How do these programs complement each other in supporting overall well-being?
Yeah. One of the reasons that we're good at what we do is all of us in the company, we stay we stay in our lane, right? And by staying in our lane, we learned one thing. Being in this for 12 years and watching the journeys of thousands of our clients, we came to find out that when a lot of men came to control their behavior with pornography, like I said, they hit the reset button. How do you date in a healthy way when you spent a decade just thinking that women were there for sex? So we started a dating reboot program where we teach you how to date in a healthy way. We teach you how to date online in a healthy way. We teach you how to actually do things that guys are so scared to do these days. Like you see a woman in the grocery store, how do you go up to the woman and have a conversation with her? right? Now we work with men of all ages, but younger guys today, like guys under 35, my mind is blown at the lack of game. Like, the lack of the
Well,
inability.
if you listen, you look at guys 40 and 50 and having to start all over again, and
Oh
like my nephew is that's his thing. He wants to start a show on relationships for men 50, 40 to
man.
55 to 60,
Mm.
and he wants to know like what is it that because I'm married, so
Yeah.
I don't have this issue. Um, but for him, he wants to know what is it that men have to do his age to really find that relationship now that they've been probably searching for all their lives.
How old is he?
Oh, he's 50.
Okay. So he wants to find out what men in their 40s and 50s have to do in order to find that. I think men in their 40s and 50s can find that, but the standard is much higher, right? And when I say the standard is much higher, it means that um, first of all, you have to have your life together, and that includes your financial life. You need to have, I'm not saying you have to be wealthy. I'm just saying there are some basic requirements that a man over 40 needs to have. He needs to have his own place. He needs to have a decent car. He needs to have savings. And the great thing about being that age is that you've racked up a lot of experience. It shouldn't take too, and you understand what work ethic is. If you wanted
Mhm.
to work, you know how to work without getting distracted. So if
Yeah.
somebody's listening and they're like, man, I'm in my 40s and 50s, I had to start over. We work with a lot of guys who lost everything to divorce. And they're like, man, I've been with somebody for 20 something years and I got to start over. Like, what do I do? And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's cool. We can help you with that. Make sure you get your finances together, get your body together. You have to get your body together. This is a very important one. People don't like to talk about body game today, but it's important because it doesn't matter the age of the woman. She's looking for that. And one interesting thing, this may be a little bit contrarian. Not everybody may agree with that, but running a dating program today is interesting. I've been in a relationship for 16 years. So, and before I got into a relationship, I spent about 3 years fixing my dating game because, like I said, I didn't have access to dates. I was a nerd. I was a complete loser by the time I controlled this. So I went out, and this was back in the day of like the pickup artists. I don't know if you remember that era. Even guys like I don't know if you know who Tariq Nasheed is.
Yes.
Yeah, this is back in the day when Tariq was running his Mac game and all that. And I was a part of those programs. I did all that stuff. Anything that was there, I learned how to do it. A lot of it was unhealthy. And thankfully, because I had stepped away from pornography, I was able to pull out the things that work for me when it came to building intimacy. And what I knew was that I didn't want to be with a whole bunch of women. I wanted one intimate relationship. So I
Hmm.
also teach guys that it's okay to go out there and learn game, but know exactly what you want. The controversial thing I was going to say is that in today's world, today, a lot of women are looking for men who are older and financially stable. Before, back in the day, there were more women, and we've seen this with our clients who were like, nah, I'm not into older guys. Like that's gross. I don't want any of that. But I would say, fortunately for single older guys, and unfortunately as well, a lot of women are being conditioned to look at older men and go like, "Hey, this is somebody who could be a provider, and this is somebody who is attractive." Not just because they're a provider, but also because you've noticed this and I've noticed this. There are more immature men in their 30s now than there were back in the day. Now you find guys who are in their 30s who are doing nothing. They're playing video games. They're still living with their parents. They're still thinking and acting like 22, 23-year-olds. So an older guy who is taking care of himself and his finances is in a really good place to date in today's dating market.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome, man. This has been great, man. Time flies like
I know, man.
when you having a great conversation. But I'm definitely gonna have you back on, man. So you come on
For
and
real,
talk
man.
some
We can
game.
talk about dating. You can have your
Oh
your
yeah.
nephew reach out and have
Oh,
him.
so yeah, but me and my nephew have a show. We could definitely have you on our show.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, cool. We can talk about that too.
when we bring that back, because that's something we wanted to focus on, is talking about dating relationships. But now you're gonna get the solo screen, you get the promo, let everybody know where they can find you, everything.
Awesome. So if you're looking for help, our website is elevatedrecovery.org. You can, if you're a podcast listener, you can find us at the Porn Reboot Podcast. We've got close to 600 episodes. If you watch YouTube, you just need to search for my name, J.K Emezi, Emezi, or Porn Reboot. We got about 1,600 videos. The reason why I'm saying this is I would like you to use my free content first to see if you can control your behavior. Right? We have coaches that you can work with. We have a free Facebook group. And once you've used some of our content, because one thing I say is this: in today's world online, if someone's a coach, I say assume bullshit, even with me, because there's a lot of stuff out there that doesn't work. We believe in our stuff. Use it for free for a couple of months. If it works for you, go ahead and reach out to one of our reboot strategists, put in an application through our website. We'll reach out to you and we'll see if you're a good fit for our program. But the truth is, most guys can control their behavior just using our free material online.
Awesome, man. Thank you once again for being a guest. I greatly appreciate it. Don't leave just yet. Let me close out the show and we'll chat a little bit off the air. But thank you, man, for being a wonderful guest, and I'm definitely gonna have you back on.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. That was a great episode. That was like time flew, man. I'm looking forward to actually having him back on. I'm going to work on getting him back on sooner than later because he's someone that's very interesting, and I really do enjoy the conversation. Just enjoy this conversation. So big shout out to my real wise fam, Poppy J, Brandy J. Love you guys. Big shout out to the boss lady. Greatly appreciate everything you do for me, babe, and everything you do for the family. And as always, a big shout out to all the essential workers out there. God bless you. Be safe. You know, your boy Wise does it. Peace out.
Wise, your production is clean.
Oh, we